Oh my goodness, diary listeners. I'm in a completely different room in my house, so there's wind, there's background noise. I do apologize. I'm laid up this week. My knee has progressively just decided not to get real better. Keep me in prayer, but as you do, this is a wonderful podcast because I speak with the one person who understands this probably better than anybody I've ever met. And she's a fantastic human, Kelly Mendenhall. We're calling this first piece of her 3-part diary entry Love Terrorist. And I hope you enjoy, listeners. Welcome to the Apprenticeship Diaries, where raw meets refined.
Let's be real, we're still working on refining.
What it took, what it takes, and the stories that are made.
Join us as we learn from professionals about how their stories began.
Aw, bless you for doing this. Oh my God, it's already a mess. For those that don't get to see, we had a little bit of a hangout with what is it, Bluetooth?
Yeah, it looks like an airplane pilot microphone. It's got but it's noise canceling and it doesn't hurt my ears. So
Oh, it's awesome.
it's like it's like supposed to be for construction workers, so that, yeah, I bought it specifically because a friend of ours who, former friend of ours, he worked in concrete. He drove a concrete truck, and he was like, I was complaining about how whenever I was trying to record podcasts and things, it picked up a lot of background noise, especially from the apartment, because this building was built in like 1968, so there's no soundproof. There's no firewalls, there's no soundproofing.
I'm pretty sure my house was not much later that it was built.
Yeah.
Same thing. You can hear everything, which I like a little bit because I'm on the upper floor sleeping. So if anybody comes in downstairs,
you hear it.
I hear it.
Yeah. Well, we're on the first floor, and our apartment's right next to the front door of the building. If we did not,
oh my God,
if we did not live where we live, that might suck less. But
dude, it's just a day of hysterics.
I'm just gonna be honest. It's not where you want to live. It's the place you live because you have to, not because you want to.
I feel you, girl. Yes.
I gotta grab my coffee.
Do it.
This is so fun. My chiropractor was like, what do you got going today? And I was like, I get to hang out with my friend Amy and record a podcast, but it's like a conversational podcast, so it's probably going to be ridiculous side rants and like side quests and all kinds of things.
I know, I'm really excited.
It'll be a good time.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. Yeah, and that was, well, before I go on, I'm with everybody listening. I'm here with my friend Kelly Mendenhall. She's fabulous. You're an author. You are creative.
Yes.
You manage constant pain. You're bionic.
I am bionic. I'm a mutant. Yeah. I'm a genetic mutant. I like to think of myself as an X-Men. Yeah. Like, if I could be an X-Man, it would be Wolverine, because it would be dope. I mean, if I have to have titanium steel in my skeleton, why not? Like, give me
yeah.
Super healing power or something. Like,
exactly.
I don't know. But, yeah, I'm all of those things and more.
Yeah, way more. Way more. Great friend. You know, wonderful at taking lemons and creating them into lemonades or chucking them at people, you know, whichever.
Well, here's the thing. What else can you do? Like, I don't know. people say like you're so good at making lemonade or whatever, and I am, and I appreciate that, but like, what is my choice? The other choice is give up.
Yeah.
And to me, maybe the anti-authoritarianism from my punk rock youth really comes in handy, because to me the most punk rock thing I can do at this point is to not let the fuckers win.
Yeah.
And stay alive.
Yeah.
And like keep going and like get better and better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's what I'm about.
Yeah. I'm like, you can't let the fuckers win, man. If I had, I could have been paralyzed by now or dead. Like,
yes.
You know, and I'm not down for that yet.
Like, yeah, dude. Well, our pre-show like preamble was like me being like, so, you know, I'm feeling low today. And you were like, well, I would love for you to share what you said to me, because it was really great. I'm deciding to push through, but I think it was really good notes for anyone.
I think I was telling Amy, like, it's about honoring your mind, body, and spirit and their needs and limitations from day to day. So one of the hardest parts for me about like becoming disabled and becoming like a spoonie and whatever is like, I feel flaky if I have to reschedule or put something off or whatever. But like at the same time, I recently described my life as like going to the first day at a new job every day, because I literally don't know until I wake up every day how my body is going to feel. And so I was trying to say to you, as someone, because I'm like 8 years into this and you're a little bit, I know you've got
I've been
more...
wrestling for about 2 weeks.
I've
been dealing with like my knee pain for like 4 years, 5 years. No,
yeah,
it's been longer. It's been like 6 years, but it's been progressive, but acutely 2 weeks.
Yeah. Which, no, acute pain is exhausting. So like I said to Amy, and I heard this in college, who knows, I didn't Google it, it could be fake, but I heard that the human body burns 30% of its calories through its brain. Cool. So when we feel exhausted at the end of the day from like a long day at work, even if you're just sitting at a desk, I hate it when people say that. Whatever your job is, if you're engaging your brain consistently, it's going to be exhausting. So you think about when you have acute chronic pain for any length of time, how much energy your brain is expending just to like mask, so that people don't see that you're in so much pain, because you don't want other people to have to like experience or witness all of your pain. It's also not necessarily helpful to talk about your pain, because that's when people like to start like giving you really good, unsolicited, horrible advice. And like, but
and it is, you know, for somebody, it is uncomfortable for them, just to validate what you're saying. Because that's what they're responding to, is the level of discomfort they feel.
Yes.
You know, given what they can't do anything about.
Especially male partners, because male partners want to fix the thing, right? Like they're, and call me a sexist, whatever. I've witnessed it. I've seen it with my own eyes. A strong male partner who is very much like the provider type, who takes caring for his family and his partner very seriously, is the type of man who is frustrated as hell when he sees you in agony and there's like nothing he can do. And that's not their fault or your fault, you know? And it's, if you can acknowledge it and like see what's happening, it makes it easier and causes less arguments. Yeah. But it took me years to learn that. But it's really hard for them. And Jeff is very empathic on top of that. So like he feels my pain. Like if my energy changes or his energy changes, we can both feel that really significantly it's really
Aw.
crazy, like how our energy plays off of each other. So it's hard for him. You know, he's a fixer, he's a mechanical guy, he's a plumber, so he fixes everything. He gets to be everybody's hero every day, but then he comes home to the woman he loves, and I look at him and I say, I don't have any spoons left because I did all the dishes and that took all my spoons because the dishes,
Are
like the
low.
sink, yeah, it's low, and I have metal in my neck and my back, and I'm tall.
Yep.
So there's just like a ripple effect of pain that no one can imagine how much thought you have to put into everyday life and every single action you take. And that's exhausting, and it's valid because your brain is literally fried. It's like, I just want to nap. Can we nap?
Well, and that's why I was like, let's go ahead and do this, because my issue is my brain right now won't stop. So
Yeah.
like it's regardless of what I got to do for my leg, my brain's like blah, 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 blah. So I was like, I might as well get on with Kelly anyway.
Now you know why I wrote a book when I couldn't walk.
Yes.
Do you by any chance have ADHD, or do you suspect having it? Like,
Oh no, I totally have been diagnosed. I have, well, my therapist called it adult ADHD.
yeah.
Which means that I work really well within systems.
Yes.
I'll get all A's, you know.
Yes, I'll check all the checklists,
and I probably have a level of autism too, because I need
I'm currently going through that screening. Yes,
Yeah.
me too. And people always think I'm challenging them, and I'm like, I'm not challenging you. I'm asking so I can understand.
I'm
like,
getting
I'm not
clarity,
questioning you. I'm not questioning your authority. I'm just trying to understand. Like, I have to tell people that. Like God dang, I'm not fighting. This isn't me like combating you. I had a boss tell me I was being like, what's the word? What's that word people use, bosses use for like you're not doing what they want you to do? Insubordinate.
That's a
And
good
I was
one.
like, I'm not insubordinate. I'm asking so I understand what I'm doing. You're telling me to do a task that goes against this social worker code of ethics that we're supposed to follow. And I'm trying to understand how I'm supposed to do that.
Right.
So, like,
yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
that's my whole life in a nutshell.
That's
why your brain
too.
won't stop, because you're stuck. Your body is forcing you to be still. So your brain is like a ping pong table with like Forrest Gump and 10 balls.
Praise
and
God, because I'm not burning calories any other way right now.
I feel that so hard. And like, I don't know what your relationship with food is. I was undiagnosed ADHD my whole life. Undiagnosed. We now suspect ASD. I'm about to go through the screening process with my new therapist for ASD, because she was like, do you want to explore that diet? And I was like, yeah, because the more that I know about my brain and body and what's going on, the more I can work with them instead of against them. And I'm shooting for the highest level quality of life, right?
Yeah.
Like,
praise God.
Exactly. So like, I don't know. I lived with all of those things without knowing, and now that I know, so much about my life makes so much sense. But it can be difficult sometimes to rein it all in. Like, if my pain is overwhelming, my squirrel brain is going to be squirrel brain. It's hard.
Yes.
And when you're still, it's like your brain goes extra bananas because it's stimming, because you don't have anything. You're not moving around. It gets very
dark too, because you start scaling what you're already feeling and putting that to time, and it just becomes this fear factor that just I broke down crying. That was when Rico got really, thank God he's not so empathetic. Because he's like,
because otherwise
crying.
He'd be a wreck.
He's like, stop crying, you're being ridiculous, you don't know pain. Kelly, I swear to God.
It's like the most Italian thing I've ever heard in my life. It's
like what
I've never heard. a more Italian male statement in my life. Okay.
It's awesome. It really helps, actually, because everybody else has been so sweet, and I'm just like, yeah, I really don't want to talk about it. And he's like, start crying. You want to know pain? When I used to skateboard, I used to rack my ankles all the time. This shit used to happen all the time. This is fine. This is normal. You're just gonna have to chill the fuck out.
Oh my God. That's like the Italian American version of Chris Rock's "Put Some Tussin on It." Like Rico is now like, you don't know pain. Like that's
And I gotta listen to him, Kelly, because it's true. The man like lifts like, he tells me about like benching 400 pounds, and he's had childhood leukemia, and he knows what
oh man, that's a lot.
He knows what a spinal tap feels like.
But like, here's the thing. It doesn't matter what your life experiences. Whatever your worst pain that you've experienced is your worst pain.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, congratulations. You haven't had to experience spinal taps and things like that. But at the same time, like, I'm sorry you're in pain. That is, it's interfering with your life. And that's difficult, especially for like a very driven, smart, creative person who's then forced to sit still. My old therapist used to say, God will continue to teach us the same lessons until we finally decide to learn them. And if you continue to not listen to your body when it tells you that you need to slow down, then the universe is going to continue to provide opportunities for you to learn that lesson. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and that's why it was perfect, because truthfully, it's not the worst pain I've ever felt. It's like you said, it's bursitis. So it's inflammation that, depending on what I do, will present a different thing.
Ache. Yeah. That is a deep, deep ache. Yeah. Like bursitis, I'd never heard of it before until I was at the ER in like, I think it was like 2018 when I was in the ER, and it was still back when we didn't know what all was happening in my spine, and my leg was blowing up. Like I was like I had like elephantitis.
Oh, you poor baby.
And it wasn't veins. I didn't have anything vascular going on. So it was just like, they were like, I'd been dealing with it for so long on top of the sciatica and everything. And this like super hot ER doctor was like, have you ever heard of bursitis? And I was like, tell me more.
Yeah, like, please.
No, I haven't.
Enlighten me.
he was like, I think you have bursitis in your hip from all the stuff that you've been going through. And that was the first time I'd heard about it. But God, that is a deep pain. It's like hard. It's hard to get away from. Like, it's kind of like the other day, sometimes when it's super humid, my whole body has just been so inflamed lately because I had a series of unfortunate events in May. Like, first, I fell while walking the dog, and then I got norovirus, so I was throwing up, which is physically very difficult for my body.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And especially because of where the metal is. Like, yeah. So, and then it was only like 2 weeks after I had the norovirus, so I was still kind of recovering from that because that's traumatic. And then 2 weeks later, I had a spinal procedure. I had the spinal nerve ablation that I go for like every 6 months. So I had all these events happen in May, and my inflammation was like up, and I was trying to get it down. But then the wildfires in Canada started, and it's been like the air quality here is horrible.
Oh, it's
awful.
My God.
My asthma is allergic asthma, and so it's worse during the change of seasons. So, dude, yeah, I'm sure you can imagine like how much fun I was having. So I've been in this horrible inflammation and pain cycle. And last night I was talking to Jeff, and I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll call my doctor and ask for a steroid pack. But then And he was like, well, what are the pros and cons? And I said, well, the pros are it would reset my inflammation in my body. It would take down all the inflammation I have and kind of reset everything so that I could get back to like my plateau, and then I wouldn't be chasing the pain so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now I feel like I'm chasing the pain. I don't use narcotics or opioids, so even more so, I have to try to stay in front of the pain, and I haven't been able to. And when my asthma is really bad and I'm coughing
You can't
a lot,
breathe.
and like all that's happening, that makes all the neuromuscular spasms in my thoracic and like low back start. And then I throw my back out, like everything, it just gets bad. And he was like, well, what are the cons? And I was like, I don't know. It's like, you want to eat everything in sight.
Mm-hmm.
You usually can't sleep for a couple days. It makes me feel anxious because it's just like, I was like, it's steroids and you're
Right.
taking a taper pack. So you start with like 6 pills the first day and then go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's a 6-day, usually do like a 6, 7, or 10-day taper pack or whatever for steroids. So he was like, well, and he was like, what? Is that the one? He goes, is that the one where like you get super like jittery and like dry mouth and stuff like that? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I feel like I've taken that before. And I was like, yeah, that's why we call them Satan's Tic Tacs, because they do their job.
Yeah.
But they bring a lot of uncomfortable side effects. And he was like, but like, will you feel better? And I was like, yeah, and I'll breathe better because
you'll breathe better.
Yeah. And I was like, and I was like, why have I been debating this for 2 weeks? Like, why did I not just 2 weeks ago? I knew I probably needed a taper. You know what I mean? But sometimes
I 100% know, because when you have chronic pain, you know that this is just a choice that you're going to have to make continually. And
yes.
that's not going to solve anything. It's just going to get you through however much time. And it's really just weighing, okay, how do I want to feel? How do I want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to solve anything. So I 100% know, because I mean, it's not in my back. And that is one thing that my very Italian husband said as well. He's like, you should be happy it's not in your back. And I was like, no, you're right. I've fallen and I have sprained my back before. And girl, I feel you on that, just on a very micro level. There's no rest. No. There's just no rest. No. It's insidious. So to just have it in my knee, but you know, like I go to church with very older people.
Yeah.
And so you really, if it feels worse, you think it's going to feel better. I mean, I love them all, but like when they can walk faster than you, and when they're coming up to you and being like, wow, what's wrong? And you're like, oh God, I don't want to talk about this with you.
Yep.
And they want to help you so much, because they see a young person suffering, and it's like, dude, they
are like, they can't wrap. Like, I had a lot of elderly women say to me, like, you're too young to feel that much pain, and God bless them. I wish that was true, but but it turns out you don't have to be very old.
No, you don't.
And now that, so the big pain started amping up in like 2015, 2016. And it was June of 2017 that I had gotten to the point where I stopped working. And crap, where was I going
I'm
with that?
so glad that you went there, because I wanted you to go back to like where everything really began in your journey, because you know you're working through this for posterity to share with people.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey. I started like blogging and stuff and sharing everything in a lot of detail in 2017 when I first stopped working, it was June of 2017 when I'd gotten to the point where I could no longer take like steps. I could only shuffle my feet a couple inches at a time. Any type of trying to take a step or have any range of motion at all was just, I would like scream in pain. So
Lord.
I went on like short-term disability for 8 weeks. Well, at the end of the 8 weeks, I was no better and no closer to an answer. And then it became 12 weeks, and then it became 16 weeks. And then we still hadn't figured it out. And so I officially like was let go from my job at that point. And that was like the last time I worked out in the real world it was June 20th of 2017. But I was only like 36 or something. I don't know. I'm not going to math it. You guys can math it. I was born in 1982. I don't know.
There you go.
Ask me about Cuba. I was a political science major, not a math major. Okay. So anyway, I was like,
you remember
36.
the date, so that's acute, you know, that's potent.
Well, yeah, because I remember driving away from my doctor's office and immediately going to the fancy gluten-free cupcake shop to emotionally eat myself into a sugar coma.
Yes. Yes.
Because I was young. I was like 36. I worked full-time in nonprofit. My whole career had been in nonprofit. I did my bachelor's in political science and a master's in public administration for nonprofit management. Like I was like, I'm gonna save the world. I was always a bleeding heart from a very young age. And when I stopped working, what I was running into, being heavily tattooed, living in the South, I was in Tennessee at the time, being 36, I lived with depression and anxiety before the big pain came. So when that onset, like I was very suicidal for a long time, daily. And so I thought I was doing the right thing when you fill out these pain questionnaires, it asks like, are you suicidal? Do you feel hopeless because of your pain? Like, and I was answering yes, all of these things. Like, and I thought that would mean that they would be more inclined to help me, but it actually meant they were more inclined to consider me hysterical and exaggerating my pain or making it up, and not just the pain, I had other symptoms too. Like, I mean, progressively over time, my left leg was like falling out from under me while I was trying to walk, and it would go numb. And like, I had chronic 10 out of 10 sciatica down my whole leg every day. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on, and I thought, well, surely they'll help me, but they just, I was treated as though I was hysterical. I was treated as a drug seeker. I would always get questioned about, so who's writing you prescriptions? And I'd be like, did you look at my chart?
Right,
like,
nobody,
dumbass. Like, and women were sometimes worse than men. I mean, men, they're like, medical gaslighting is something that happens to men and women, and it happens no matter what gender the medical professional is, but it happens to women statistically far more often than it happens to men. But female medical professionals, I think, can be even harder on women. I think women are harder on women than men ever can be.
Yes.
So,
it's
but
been
that's
my
a whole
experience
nother,
too.
that's a whole nother podcast. But
I
would get treated like a drug seeker, but then when they find out that I'm not taking any medication, then they'd say, well, you need pain management. And I remember seeing an orthopedic surgeon early on in the journey, and he said, looking at your MRIs and your x-rays, I can only make you feel worse. Like, doing surgery isn't going to help you. I can only make you feel worse. You need pain management. And I said, okay, well, what does that look like? Because that was a term I wasn't familiar with. And he said, well, you would see, I want you to do 6 weeks of aquatic physical therapy downstairs. Great. And then I would put you on oxycodone. And I was like, that's not a care plan. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I'm 36. I'm telling you that if you put me on oxycodone and you're not trying to figure out what's causing the pain, like physical therapy's fine.
Right.
Sure. If it helps, great. But like, pain is the symptom, not the disease.
Correct.
So I'm asking you to use your doctor brain and do your fucking job. That's not what I said, but it's what I wanted to say. I was like, so that's not a long-term care plan. I said, so what? You want to stick me on opioids and put me in physical therapy until I die when I'm like 80? In the meantime, I become a heroin addict because I've got addiction on both sides of my family, and I live with major depressive disorder and complex PTSD. So what about me says to you, let's throw oxycodone at her? Like, what?
Did you say that to him?
No, I just told him I told him it wasn't a long-term care plan and that I wasn't going to take the prescription. And he said, if you're not willing to take it, then your pain must not be that bad. So I was fucked either way. Like, it didn't matter. If I took the drugs, no one would believe me. If I didn't take the drugs, no one would believe me. So,
wow.
It was a journey. It took 2.5 years to finally get to a neurologist. I went through, I did so many MRIs and stuff, but they refused to look at my whole back. They would only look at my low back because I had so much pain in my low back, and because my left leg had so much pain. They were like, that has to be your low back. That has to be your low back. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. And I also had severe endometriosis that was contributing to it, but we didn't know that.
Dude.
So
that'll make your lower back hurt like hell.
Oh, dude, we found out after all my spine surgeries, I still had, my left leg was blowing up and like all these other symptoms. And I have a spinal cord implant to control the sciatica pain. That was all permanent damage by endometriosis that went undiagnosed because doctors just told me I was fat and that my birth control couldn't compensate.
Dude.
Oh, in Tennessee, the doctors told me, if you're not going to have children, then you need to just expect that your periods are going to get worse and worse. And I said, so wait, are you telling me that God's punishing me for not using my uterus by making my periods worse and worse? Is that what you're telling me? That's your professional medical opinion? Cool. All
right.
So anyway, we didn't find all that out until I went through all the surgeries, but it turned out they refused to ever do the full spinal MRI. And then finally in like May of 2018, I went to see a neurologist at like 7:00 in the morning, and he could smell that I had no alcohol in my system. Like, he knew, but I couldn't pass a field sobriety test. That's how bad my neurological signals were. Like, I couldn't find my own nose. I couldn't like balance. I couldn't walk, none of it. And he looked at me and he goes, what have they been doing to you? They've done all of these tests, but they never looked anywhere else in your spine. And I said, no, they've refused to give me full spinal MRIs. They made me do a nerve test where they zapped my nerves and like to see if they were. I was like, I could have told you they're working.
They're working. It hurts.
It hurt. I was literally bawling on the table while they were doing that test because it was so traumatic. So he was like, what in the fuck have they been doing to you? And I was like, I don't know, but help. And he was like, I don't know what's wrong yet, but I just want you to know I believe you. Something is going on neurologically. He said, because there's no way you're drunk right now and you can't pass a field sobriety test. He said, there's something wrong. So they like urgent, they like expedite ordered things like more MRIs, and then this thing called a CT myelogram, where they strap you to a metal table in like an x-ray room, and they inject your spine with like radioactive goo. And then the table like moves around so that the goo like goes like up and down your spinal
For
column.
gravity.
So it's so it spreads out. And then they can see in the image like where the spinal fluid is going, so they can see if somewhere there's a blockage. And that's when they found the blockage in my spine, which my spinal cord had been being internally crushed for at least 3 years at that point. What happened was I had a spinal disc right under my bottom ribs at T12 and L1, right between the low ribs and the high upper, your lumbar spine. That ruptured, and because it had gone on for so long and gone undetected for so long, it had grown into like a mass of calcified cells and bone cells. And then there was a bunch of shrapnel that had chipped off that and was floating around in my spinal column, on top of the fact that my spinal cord was being crushed and deformed.
Oh my God.
And so all of a sudden, so June 1st, my memoir comes out. June 1st, 2019, my memoir comes out. June 5th of 2019, I get the call that says I'm literally on the elliptical, and they call me and say, stop exercising right now, and you're on bed rest. You're probably going to need 2 surgeries, and we need to have you come in. We need you to bring a loved one and come in and talk to Dr. Cox. And I'm like,
this was right before we met too, right? Yeah. Dude, and this is, just to be clear, this is 2 years into your investigation that somebody finally believed you?
Mm-hmm. It was 2.5 years, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, because the big pain started getting worse in 2015 and 2016. In 2016 is when I went to my doctor and started saying, or 2015 rather, I started saying my pain's been worse, but I'm trying to, handle it. By 2016, I was like, okay, this is like something's wrong. And then June of 2017, it was like I can't really walk and I can't work. So I get that news on June.
You get off
June
the elliptical?
1st, I get off the elliptical. So we're talking 5 days after my book comes out. I find this out. July 17th, I think, I had a fusion in my neck because there was also a ruptured disc at the base of my neck. And I had like spondylitis or whatever, a lot of words, spondy. Yeah. So my vertebrae were like moving around, and they rotate. My joints are all hypermobile, and so they move and rotate. And so that was going on in my neck and had gotten to the point where I had cervical vertigo. So anytime I moved my neck in any direction, I would start to fall because I was getting vertigo and getting dizzy. So on July 17th of that year, only a month and a half later, I had the cervical fusion, and then I was doing okay for a couple of months after the cervical fusion, and then all of a sudden it started to feel like someone had wrapped their arms around my waist, and they were squeezing so hard that it was making pain radiate down my legs and like up my back, and it was bad. It was so bad that I called my pain management doctor and said, I need drugs.
Right.
I can't take it. Like, we got to figure something out. And that was when we figured out that things had gotten like markedly worse with my lower back.
Right.
Where I lived at the time was not equipped to do the surgery I needed.
Oh, wow.
I have a fusion. So in October of that year, I went to Nashville and had a fusion from the 10th vertebrae in my thoracic spine down to the 2nd vertebrae, so T10 to L2, which it's incredibly rare to have a rupture where I had a rupture. It's incredibly rare to operate on the thoracic part of your spine. They don't like to do that. They really don't like to do it unless it's like they're removing a cancerous tumor or something.
Right.
Because the thoracic part of your spine is where all of your organs are, you know?
Yes.
So where I was, they were not able to complete the surgery because they didn't have the staff, because you had to have cardiothoracic surgeons and everybody on site for this type of operation.
Right. If you nick the bowels or anything like that, it's a whole other thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the surgeon at the hospital where I lived was human enough and kind enough to say, I could do this surgery, but the way I would have to do it would be so much more invasive and hard on you. There's this genius surgeon in Nashville that I would like to send you to, because he's one of only a few people in the country who could do this surgery and perform this surgery in a direct approach and go directly through your back to your spine. Traditionally, what
they go through the front.
They would put you on your side and do what they call a shark bite incision. And deflate your lungs and break your ribs and move all your organs out of the way so that they can get to your spine. And as I'm sure you can imagine, that's a much more traumatic healing process. So it just so happened that I was about 45 minutes from Nashville, where this like real life Doogie Howser genius neurosurgeon was. And I went to see him, and when I met him, he said, I have to imagine you probably want to have this surgery. First, he walks in and he goes, I just want to let you know, like right now, yes, I will take you as a patient. Yes, I will do the surgery. And I was like, thank God. And he's like, looking at the imaging, I'm going to guess that you would like this done as soon as possible. And I'm like, yes. So it was like October 22nd that I had that big surgery, and it was supposed to be 4.5 hours long, and they were going to fuse like 2 sections. It ended up being 8 hours, and they had to fuse 4 because, again, because of the rupture and the spinal cord crush and deformation, everything, all my vertebrae were shifting around and moving, and everything was like, it was haywire.
I'm sure there was tons of shrapnel around.
Oh yeah, he said they could only see on the images 50% of what was actually in my spine. And like, when you look at the images of the thing crushing my spinal cord, and you think they could only see 50% of that. And then I think, God, what a fucking miracle it is that I'm breathing and walking and talking.
Right.
And it didn't really hit me until like this last year, because when I was going through all of it, a year to the week after my major spine surgery, I was having a emergency hysterectomy, to get all this endometriosis and tumors and shit out of me. And so it was like a total of 6 major surgeries in 22 months. And all these undiagnosed neurodivergent conditions. Can you imagine? Like, dude, I was a shell of myself.
Well, like, I'm sure you were just doing the next thing, like just the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Like
and then when I ran out of things, I was like, oh fuck, how do I live now? And then I still had to fight the legal battle. Because, as you know, it took 5.5 years, and I had to sue the federal government for Social Security. And it's like, did I want to have to collect Social Security at this age? Fuck no, I didn't.
No.
I worked in nonprofit. I didn't even have time to build it up, okay? Like, nobody wants this.
No.
But people act like you do. Like, it's so frustrating. People treated me like I was lazy, or I just didn't want to work. And I finally said to some doctors, I said, listen, no one puts themselves through college and grad school and takes on 200 grand worth of debt because they're fucking lazy and don't want to work.
No.
Okay?
No one.
Get it out of your head. That's not what's happening here. And they'd look, oh my God, I can't believe she, but it's like sometimes you have to like shock the shit out of people to get them to listen to you.
Yes.
And like you have to call those stereotypes out and those like the stigmas and the stereotypes and the assumptions. You have to call them flat out on their face and tell them straight up, like I'm not your regular patient.
Right.
I'm not I'm not making shit up. I'm not drug seeking, and I'm not your average person. So you're not just gonna like annoy me to the point where I go away.
I mean, you have it in your heart, in your head. I mean, talk about idealistic as me as a person, but I would hope, the motivation in going into the medical practices is to actually help people, regardless of how severe it is. And to even have the thought
but they're
of
so jaded. They're so jaded, especially in the pain industry, and the American medical system is just so fucked. So many doctors are so burnt out because they are not allowed to look at patients as patients. They're forced to look at patients as customers and dollar signs. Yep. And my own pain management doctor, I can blame them, but I can't blame them. My doctor said to me, I told him when I went for one of my procedures, I said, you need to know that the kind of doctor you are saves lives. And people like me die every day because not enough doctors like you exist.
Yeah.
And I said, I need you to know how important you are, because like my first time going in for a procedure, I was so triggered by everything I had been through in Tennessee. I'm back, back in Michigan now. I was like sobbing and panicking. Like I was just like, I didn't even want to have to go into the OR. And he walked over and did like the dad, like, kiddo, I promise I'll get you through this. And like gave me a hug. And doctors don't do that because they're forced to be unhuman. They're like trained and forced to be these like robotic fact finders or whatever. And when he hugged me and said, kiddo, I promise you I'm going to get you through this. I don't know what they did to you in Tennessee, but I'm going to get you through this.
Aw. It's rough, girl. Ugh.
I told him, I said, you need to know that people like me are alive because of people like you.
Yeah.
And he said, thank you so much for saying that, because he said some days it's really hard to tell if anything I'm doing is making any difference at all. And I don't, he said, I question all the time whether or not I'm making a difference. And I was like, you are, because I said, there's so many pain doctors out there who don't trust their patients or believe their patients, and they won't comfort their patients or like be human. And so many of us have already been through so much.
Yeah.
People think we're just being hysterical, but it's like, you talk about the brain and trauma. I had somebody explain to me after my hysterectomy, when I was having such a hard time recovering from all the surgeries, like emotionally and everything, this woman psychologist told me, every time you get put under anesthesia, general anesthesia, that is traumatic to your brain, and it's like a brain injury, which I didn't know. And she said,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, she said it takes about 6 months for your brain to heal from that.
Oh, wow.
She said, so if you imagine, she goes, you had 6 surgeries, but I'm assuming you had procedures where you had to be put under. And I said, oh, yeah, I had a shit done. She goes, okay, so think about the fact that you've had a couple dozen times you've been under general anesthesia in the last few years. And you think about the fact that that has injured your brain and it needed time to heal, but you only had a few months between every surgery. She was like, your brain is injured.
Yeah.
It's hurt.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault. It doesn't mean like, she's like, it doesn't mean you're hysterical. It doesn't mean that you're like unfixable. It just means like your brain is traumatized right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I like stepped back from all advocacy work, and I was really private and kind of hidden for a few years because I really just had to keep myself alive and
Right.
and functioning. And and it wasn't until 2022 that I finally found won my legal case against the government. So it was a lot. It was a lot.
Dude.
And maybe that's why I'm even more like, you can't let the fuckers win, you know? It goes back to that like resilience and like, how do you do it? I do it because I'm not going to let them win.
Right. Yeah.
They took enough from me.
Yeah.
All the doctors, the lawyers, the judge that ruled against it, the insurance company, all of those people took enough from me.
Yeah.
And they don't get to take any more. So like, I'm fighting really hard to be back more vocal and more out there again, and like consistently speaking up for myself and others, because I know people need it. And I know because like when you and I first met and everything, and like the digital scene was blowing up, podcast world was blowing up.
That's all we had.
There was like a huge Spoonie community, you know, and I had helped foster a lot of that online, and like it was a very supportive network, and like it really felt like not just like social media, but like family and friends, and like we all had each other. And then when I disappeared for a few years and came back, everything was different. And that like the national conversation was different. Medical gaslighting is now being talked about all the time, but like hidden disabilities weren't being talked about that much. And the spoon theory and Spoonie community had kind of scattered a little bit and fallen off.
Well, and I know that so I tattoo everybody, but just the other day I talked with, he's younger. He's not, I think he's 33. But I asked him if he knew about spoonies and spoons, and he was like, no. And he's a firefighter. He's a EMT, and he had no idea. And I told him about it. But yeah,
isn't that so great when you get to share it with somebody and they're like, oh my God, I love that.
Yeah.
Because it's a way to reframe. Like, instead of saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't, you're saying, I don't have the spoons for that right now, but I can do this.
Yeah.
Like,
how many spoons I got? Yeah.
And it's a mindset. People think, oh, whatever, and roll their eyes. But the mindset thing is so huge.
Yeah.
Your subconscious is receiving messages 24 hours a day. Yeah. So if you're not careful about the message you send your subconscious, then that stuff is still with you, whether you're thinking about it or not. So if you're saying the words, I can't, all the time, you're not going to be able to.
Right.
But if you can say like, I can do this, but I'm choosing not to do it because it honors my body. Yeah. That's a different mindset. And that is delivering a message to your subconscious that you are important, your care is important, and your needs are important. And if you are pushing yourself constantly beyond your body's needs or beyond your limitations mentally or physically for any given day, you're sending the message to your subconscious that everything else is more important than your pain. Taking care of everyone else is more important than taking care of yourself. And that's how we hurt ourselves more and burn out. and all the other things. And so yeah, you have to get really comfortable with self-care, which was not comfortable for me at all.
I don't think it's comfortable for most people, you know, like, I mean, at least I don't know, in I can't say at the world at large or people at large, but, you know, definitely within, like, if you have that kind of like, I want to take on the world, I want to do big things, I want to, you know, if you have an ambitious spirit, that's not it's not
so hard.
It's so hard.
And I've always been a person who's like really community minded and involved, you know. I've always been like a volunteer and like a person who tries to build bridges and like help other people. I had lost that for a couple of years. I was so scared that I was walking with my head down all the time.
You did gain Petunia though, so that was awesome. I did. And we all got to like kind of, you know, share her, and she's beautiful.
She's the best. And she brought me back to life. I've been putting together like video montages of all of our walks from the past 2 years since she's been like recovering from her knee surgery, and I've been, you know, doing my spine rehab, and like it's just, it makes me so happy because she gets so happy that when she's like walking through town, she'll just drop out of nowhere onto her back and roll around and get spicy. Like she's just so happy that she literally cannot contain herself.
Aww.
And we'll be walking and like we'll come to a stoplight and all of a sudden she's rolling around looking like just like going crazy, and everybody in their cars is like laughing, and I'm just like, oh my god, like at least we can make people smile, Petunia, but you're bringing a lot of attention like she embarrasses me sometimes because I don't like being on the spot, but it's hilarious and cute. So like I don't know, she's really good for my soul. She really is. She's good for anybody that she loves. She takes really good care of Jeff and the kids and everybody. But yeah, I mean, I realized recently it's been 6 years since my surgeries. So it's December 2018 when I got my spinal cord stimulator implant. And 2019 when I had the fusions. And I was like, okay, so this year marks 5 years or whatever, or 6 years. So in this October will be 6 years since my surgeries, and only now am I in the best health of my life.
Wow.
My blood labs recently came back the best they've ever been.
Wow.
I've lost about 70 pounds, 60 plus pounds over the last 2 years with walking and exercising. If I can encourage anybody, like spinal fusion doesn't have to be the end of your story. Like no injury does. There's literally no logical reason why I'm not paralyzed or why my heart and lungs work as well as they do in spite of where my spinal cord was crushed. There's all kinds of like none of it makes sense.
Right.
I am a walking miracle.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can tell my story and help other people is miraculous. But only now am I able to like regularly, for years I couldn't even prepare a meal for myself. Now I can cook dinners like 3 nights a week, most weeks. And I can vacuum twice a week, and I can wash dishes. The dishes suck because the sink's really low. It wears when I go, but I can do all these things that I couldn't do, and I'm in the best health of my life. And I thought to myself, what if I would have stopped trying before I got to the good part?
Wow.
Like,
I know.
6 years seems like a long time, but the time was going to pass whether I tried or not.
Yes.
So I just kept telling myself I wasn't going to read about what other people said were going to happen to me as a spinal cord crush survivor.
Right. I'm losing you a bit, hon. So I might have to have you repeat what you're saying. I don't know if you can hear me. Please come back Wi-Fi. Wait a minute. Are you there?
Is it there?
It said my internet connection is unstable, but I don't know.
It's where it's.
I feel like I'm.
It only blipped for a second.
Yeah, I know. What were you saying though? But like you said, what if I had given up before I got into the good part? And
yeah, because 6 years is a long time to wait, and like there were times when I definitely wanted to give up. In 2021, I fell backwards into a tub onto the hardware in my back, and I knocked both of my bottom ribs loose because they only had like a little bit of bone. Because they'd had to remove a lot of bone to make room for the hardware. So when I fell backward into the tub because I couldn't feel my feet, I you know, the built-in like soap thing on the wall, like that's what I hit my hardware on.
Oh my God.
And it took 10 months after that to figure out why there was clunking in my back every time I moved. And we kept doing more scans and stuff because they were afraid that the metal hardware had failed. But what it ended up being, it took 10 months, and the doctor laid his hand on my back to feel my back while I was bending over. And he goes, "Oh my God." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "It's your ribs. Because your bottom ribs are floating. They're only attached in the back." Moved. And he was like, "So they're unseating and seating themselves when you move. And that's what it is." But it took almost a year to figure it out. And in the meantime, I was at panic level 5,000 every time I had to move.
Well, and breathe.
Yeah. I was like, why am I clunking? Like, that's not okay.
If you laugh too hard, if you sneeze, if you cough.
Oh, cough. Ugh, anything. Dude. I remember my therapist once was like, "Oh my God, it hurts when you laugh." And I was like, "Yes." Yeah. And she was like, "That's like the saddest thing I've ever heard." Like, and I was like,
"Well, thanks for letting me feel better."
But like, she was like, "You're such a funny person and you find so much humor in life." And like, and she was like, "It just is sad to me that you have to feel pain when you laugh." And I was like, "Well, it's not the best thing, but
it would still be painful if you were crying though too."
Yeah. That's the thing. Oh, when I cry, all these muscles on the back of my head and my neck, they like tense up and start pulling. It is not a good time. If I have a good cry one day, I might have a headache for 3 days later.
Oh my God, dude. Wow.
It's a ripple effect. That's the thing I want people to understand the most. And I was thinking about this a lot because for a few reasons. One, I filed a civil rights complaint against a local brewery owner last year because he kept parking food truck vendors in the handicap spots and blocking the handicap spot with the food trucks for the brewery. So all of us who are medical patients who need to get into the cannabis dispensary, there's no handicap spots available because they're using them for food trucks.
Yeah.
And so one night, I'll get to put a pin in that. So there's that, and then there's this incident that happened recently that you saw one of my videos about, where I was at the laundromat and a guy's rig was like really big, parked crooked next to the handicap spot. His mirrors were so big, and he had them out that they were in the handicap spot, but I didn't realize that. I was trying not to hit his truck.
Right.
I wasn't looking for the mirror, so when I stood up with my basket of laundry, I raked my neck and back on his mirror and screamed in pain. I mean, it hurt. It hurt so bad. And then my arms started tingling all the way down to my fingers, which scared the shit out of me. So he's outside smoking and sitting at the table and witnesses this happen. Says nothing, does nothing. I catch my breath and I look over and I say, "Sir, is this your truck?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Do you think you could please just move it over like just a little bit so that I can get in and out with my laundry?" And he rolled his eyes and like laughed at me. And I was like, dude, I'm not trying to be a pain in your ass. I have half a metal spine. Okay. Yeah. I'm hurt. Like, please.
Yeah.
And he walks over between our vehicles and stands there and goes, well, my truck's inside the lines, with a smirk on his face. And I said, I am literally only asking for a little tiny bit of human kindness. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
Kindness.
Yeah.
He smacked his mirror in and goes, there's your kindness. And I was like, oh, you're a real fucking angel, dude. I rage cried for like 20 minutes and smoked a joint in the parking lot because I was really hurt.
Well, and I watched it all, and and believe me, when I went downstairs and did my laundry in my house, I thought of you. Because you were like, I really wish I didn't have to do this fucking laundromat.
Yeah, we got away with, like, for 3 years, we had machines in the basement that we bought. We bought machines and put them in the basement of our building and let everybody use them because we live in a slum.
Right.
And they would never have working machines. And they don't have change machines, but they cost quarters. And then they'd eat the quarters all the time. And it was just like, it was like a horrible situation for everybody. And I'm not the only disabled person in the building. There's 2 others, and one of them's elderly. And then there's like kids and stuff. And I was like, it is a basic fucking human right to have hygiene and clean clothes. I don't give a fuck. Like, I got mad.
Yeah.
And I was like, and Jeff was like, do you want to like go buy machines off Marketplace? And I was like, yes. Right now. And we did it. And for 3 years, we probably bought 3 different sets of machines, but all of us got to have clean laundry and a sense of humanity, you know?
Yeah.
And nobody had to pay for it. Like, we asked people, if you're going to use it, could you pitch in $20 or whatever? But like, I was like, we're not doing this to charge people or make money. We're doing it because we all deserve like basic human decency.
Yeah, clean laundry.
So, but now that we've gotten the city involved, and I don't know if I told you about damning the man.
No, I'm learning all this, but it's good for, like I said, the recording and everything. Because the big bitch of it is, for me, is that the more people who know and understand, the more they can help and gives them the opportunity. Because it really hurts my heart that you had to, demand help from the government. I don't want them having power. I don't want them having half the money they have. I want to keep my money, and I'd like to give it to people like you. And
I don't. And you know what sucks is when you're officially disabled by the U.S. government, when you're on disability, you're no longer allowed to have savings.
Yeah.
If I have more than $2,000, I must not be disabled, so they'll just cancel my disability benefits. I can't have more than $2,000 in my bank account, and I cannot have a savings account.
That's ridiculous.
So if my mom passed away and I got an inheritance, if within 60 days I don't hurry up and go to a lawyer and put it in what they call a special needs trust for myself, then they'll take my disability away.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's so many levels people don't know about all this stuff.
Yeah.
But like, what was it? What was I going to tell you about? So for the first couple of years that we lived here, I didn't have a voice because I was just too messed up.
Yeah.
But in 2023, summer 2023, I'd finally had enough because it was like the 3rd or 4th disabled person had died in this apartment complex, and like all of them die and no one finds them for days or weeks. And part of that is because of how slum and inaccessible our buildings are. And I couldn't take it anymore.
Right.
And I looked at Jeff and I said, I don't know why the fuck I'm sitting here acting like I do not have a voice and I am powerless in this situation, because I do have a voice, and I am not going to let these people get rich off the backs of elderly and disabled people anymore. And I called the city like right then before I could lose my nerve. I mean, there was fear involved too, because like the owner is shady and he has shady people that work for him, and there's illegal drug activity on site and like all these different things. So it's also scary to be the person that speaks up because you're making yourself a target. But like, it just so happened I called the city of Saline, I left a message, and who calls me back but my friend of like 20 years, and he's like, hey, did you know I work for the city now? I'm the code enforcement officer. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, dude.
Dude, that's like, a total God wink.
I know. I was like, dude, you don't get how fucked up. So I started texting him pictures of the like the window frames and the windows that have separated, and like people get snow in their apartments because it's all the original metal windows from 1968. Our windows cracked across the whole, like the glass cracked because there's no keeping the cold out of the inside, so everything, the hot and cold gets so bad the windows just start cracking and popping. But
right.
So at first when I told him everything, he's like, okay, I'm gonna talk to my boss and see about getting out there next week.
And this is Michigan, right?
Yeah, this is Michigan.
It's really freaking cold.
Saline, Michigan.
Like you can't.
So we're like an hour from Detroit. No. You can't have cats and dogs outside. Like, no, it's bad. And this winter was really bad in January and February. It was like me and Petunia only walked, we walked like 2 miles a day. And all of January, we walked 7 miles because it was so cold.
Yeah.
Like
her ears will freeze off. Like
exactly. So like, and then, I had found out like the neighbors across the hall, we kept getting carbon monoxide like
things,
issues and whatever, and like gas leaks. And I'm like, what in the fuck is going on? And I get the gas company to come, and we find out together that one of the residents is using their gas stove to heat their apartment because their boiler hasn't worked for 2 years, but the apartment complex hasn't come and fixed it because they don't want them to live here, but they don't want to go through formal eviction, so they're trying to just get them to like leave by not fixing it.
Oh my God.
I mean, this is the level of fucked up that's happening in this place.
I mean, carbon monoxide is definitely a problem, but so is fire. And
thank you. And again, no firewalls. This place is not up to code. So, when I sent the videos and pictures of some of the things, Barry called me and said, my boss and I are going to be over in like an hour. Can you be there to give us permission to come in? And I was like, yep. They were here for like an hour and a half taking pictures and videos. And the owner of this place also owns a complex in the next town over. And they are both in just as horrible state of disrepair. They're both slums, and they've been declared inhumane. So the city of Milan and the city of Saline, Michigan, they have teamed up to sue our landlord. They're trying to like force, what is it? It starts with a C. I don't know. They're trying to like force him to give up the places and get another firm to come in and buy them and fix them up and get them up to code. So for the last like 2 years, nobody's had to pay rent. And there's no legal leases because the city was like, this place is inhumane, and it's clearly been so for so long that like there's no way. They were like, you don't have to worry about anybody coming after you for back rent because they can't charge you rent for these conditions. Like they were like, unless a conservator comes in and takes over and gets it up to code, then at that time they could make a new lease with you and charge you rent, but like not currently. So at least I can feel good about the fact that like I saved all of us from paying to live in such like horrendous conditions. And the city has started hiring contractors, so like they're about to come and redo the foundations and windows in our building soon, which is awesome. Yes. But between like this living situation and the situation with the bar and the vendors and handicap parking, and then some other things that I've experienced lately, like the laundromat situation, the biggest thing I want people to realize is like the ripple effect of our lives. Like if someone does something that causes us pain or exacerbates our pain, there's a ripple effect to that. Like I didn't just stand up and hit my hardware on that truck mirror and move on with my life. For the next 15 minutes, my whole arm tingled all the way down to my fingers, and I was having a panic attack because I didn't know if the wires to my spinal cord stimulator had been crushed.
Right.
I didn't know if I had damaged like the hardware, or if I had damaged a disc when I did that. Like, all the thoughts are coming to my head. Then I'm crying.
Not to mention you still have laundry to do.
Yeah, I still have laundry to do, and all the machines are fucking out of order, and so only the ones on the bottom are working. So then
and
I have to
you're
bend
really
over.
fucking tall, so you can't.
Yeah,
dude, that would have just crushed me enough, like beyond. You're like, shit.
And that's why I posted that video, because I was like, people need to know how bad it is, or they're not ever going to stop. No one's ever going to create any level of compassion or empathy. They'll never develop it if they don't know what's really going on. And the thing is a lot of people, it's not that people don't care if you're in pain and suffering. It's that they don't understand. And they don't know what it's like.
I mean, you know, I don't know. Probably. You're probably right.
I mean, some people are assholes, but I think generally most people fear and feel like they can't fix it.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think you're right. That's why I love service. That's why the service industry. I forget what somebody had said, but it was somebody knocking service and kind of comparing it to, like, I guess those lofty white collar jobs. And I said to them, I'm like, wait a minute, what's bad about service? I'm confused. I have to admit, I'm a little pricked by what you just said there. I was like, because my family has been a service-based business since I was 12, and I cannot imagine a more, I don't know, meaningful career and way to apply yourself in this world than service. Because,
and connecting with other humans.
Dude, I mean, and I said, you know, my family, we were a hair salon, but we did food drives. We did, you know, Toys for Tots. My parents sponsored little league teams. My dad coached for teams that were not even us.
Yeah.
We taught, I mean, there was a litany of professionals that left our salon that learned a profession there.
Yeah.
And that proliferated, if not owning their own salon or business, but went to work for other people as professionals and were there for decades. I'm like, you know, I don't quite understand, because it's like you said, one of the first things that I learned in that career, and I'm so grateful, was there was I don't want to get it wrong. I'm probably going to get the name wrong, but a lot of hair salon, you know, and you wrote a book. So that's another thing. I read a book about this guy, and I think it was called On Being a Day Maker. And it was all about, like, those little things that you can do to bring somebody back and reconnect them and just give them a moment of where everything else stops.
Yes.
And it's such an amazing thing.
It helps so much. Mm-hmm. Like, when you put service above self, even if you can't physically serve, you can serve people by doing things like smiling at someone that you see. So, like, for a few years there, I was so scared and like in my little hidey hole of, like, anxiety and, like, whatever.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
You
probably, like, completely understandable. But I, like, when I started coming out, and that's how I was, you know, I was like, I think this might be like autism, if I'm being honest, and this is part of why I say my disabilities are my superpower. my friends call me a love terrorist ever since I was a kid. If I love hard.
Yeah.
Like, I love my friends. I love my family. I will, like, I'm loyal. I will fight for you. I will, like, it, like, I love hard.
Yeah.
And very easily. Like, it's not something I think about. It's just like, oh, you're a human being and we have connected and that is so cool. And, like, I love learning things about you. You know what I mean? It's just,
right.
And again, I think that's a little bit of the autism, but to me, that's a superpower, because my whole life, I have been told by others that I can make them feel much better just by walking into a room, because my energy is, like, different. And they're like, my friend Lisa was the one who started calling me love terrorist. She's like, I hate hugs normally. I hate people normally. She was like, you can't meet Kelly and not fall in love with her. She will literally just, like, talk to you and tell you cool stories until you fall in love with her, because she just wants to be your best friend. And I was like, I don't know if that's good or bad. She's like, no, it's the best part about you.
It's love terrorism.
Yeah, she was like, you're literally a love terrorist. And that's kind of how my old dog Rosebud became known as a love terrorist. And I got the tattoo that says love terrorist with her picture.
Okay, diary listeners. Well, you've heard a bit about Kelly. We talked for a while more. We have 2 more episodes coming after this. Again, I'd like to apologize for the background noise. I'm kind of confined to my run room right now, and this seems to be the best way my leg feels. So I'm staying with it. I'm just gonna be nice to myself. But please check out Kelly. Oh my God, listeners, I'm so sorry for the background noise. It's ridiculous. I need those sound canceling headphones she has. Kelly's on Instagram, Kelly J Mendenhall. It's as it sounds, MENDENHALL. Yes, Mendenhall. It's as it sounds. It's phonetic. And also, check out her book, Skin in the Game, The Stories My Tattoos Tell. This is one of the factors that brought Kelly and I together, because we were on a Facebook page and we met there for women, or I think female podcasters, and it was pretty cool. And she saw that I was a tattoo artist, so we kind of connected. All right, listeners. Well, have a great week. Make it powerful. I'm gonna try to do as much as I can from my bed. Love you all. Later.
Thanks for listening. You can find the Apprenticeship Diaries on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our IG is the_apprenticeship_diaries. If you would like to offer constructive criticism or an interview, drop us an email at theapprenticeshipdiaries@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from our listeners.